I met a man once who told me something that shook me to my core. He said, Jim, I just turned 50 years old and I finally realized something terrifying. I haven't lived 50 years, I've lived 1 year 50 times. Let that sink in for a moment. 1 year 50 times. The same patterns, the same mistakes, the same excuses, the same results. He wasn't talking about having a routine or being disciplined. He was talking about being trapped. And here's what haunts me about that conversation. He's not alone. Most people are running on a treadmill they don't even know they're on. You know what I've learned after all these years of studying success and human behavior? The biggest threat to your future isn't some external enemy. It's not the economy, it's not your circumstances, and it's not even bad luck. The biggest threat to your future is the cycle you're living in right now that you haven't even noticed. It's the pattern you repeat every single day that feels so normal, so natural that you don't realize it's slowly stealing your life from you. Let me tell you about my own wake-up call. I was 25 years old working at Sears and I was broke. Not just financially broke, though that was certainly true. I was broke in my thinking, broke in my habits, broke in my approach to life. And here's the thing that nobody tells you about being stuck. You don't feel stuck. You feel busy. I was working hard, coming home tired, paying bills, making excuses, and then doing it all over again. Every week was a copy of the last one. Every month looked like the one before. I had a cycle going, and I didn't even see it. What finally opened my eyes was my mentor, Mr. Schoaf. He didn't give me a lecture about working harder. He asked me one simple question, Jim, how long have you been saying you're going to turn things around? That question hit me like a freight train, because I had been saying it for years. Next month will be different. Next year will be better. I'm going to start saving. I'm going to start reading. I'm going to get serious. But nothing ever changed because I never changed. I was waiting for my circumstances to improve while I kept running the same program day after day. Here's what most people don't understand about cycles. They think a cycle is always something dramatic like addiction or abuse. But the truth is, the most dangerous cycles are the subtle ones. The quiet patterns that don't look like problems. It's the person who says, I'll start tomorrow every single day for 20 years. It's the couple who has the same argument in different words every week. It's the parent who swears they won't repeat their parents' mistakes, but somehow finds themselves saying the exact same things. It's the person who earns more money each year, but somehow ends each year more in debt. I'm not talking about habits here. Habits are conscious. You know, you have a habit of drinking coffee every morning or going for a walk. A cycle is different. A cycle is unconscious. It's operating in the background of your life like a computer program you never knew was installed. And the scary part? These cycles have incredible momentum. The longer they run, the stronger they get. Think about it this way. If you're running a cycle of poor financial decisions, it started somewhere. Maybe it started with a small choice to buy something you couldn't afford. That felt okay because it was just one time. But then you did it again and again. And after a while, overspending wasn't a choice anymore. It was just what you do. It became your normal. And here's the really insidious part. You start to build an identity around it. I'm just not good with money. That's just how I am. No, that's not how you are. That's the cycle talking. That's the pattern defending itself. The same thing happens with relationships. You have one argument where you shut down instead of communicating. It feels safer in the moment to avoid conflict, but that becomes your pattern. The next time tension arises, you shut down again. After a few years, shutting down isn't a reaction, it's your relationship strategy. And then you wonder why you feel disconnected from everyone in your life. The cycle has you convinced that you're just not good at opening up, when really you just never broke the pattern of emotional avoidance. Let me tell you what I've observed over decades of working with people from all walks of life. The cycles that destroy us usually started as solutions. They began as ways to cope, to survive, to get through something difficult. The person who works 80 hours a week started by working hard to prove themselves or provide for their family. That's noble. But somewhere along the way, work became an escape. It became the way to avoid dealing with other parts of life. And now, 20 years later, they've built a successful career on the outside, but lost everything that matters on the inside. The solution became the problem. Or take the person who learned early in life that keeping their head down and not making waves kept them safe. That was probably a smart survival strategy as a kid. But now they're 40 years old, still keeping their head down, still not making waves, and wondering why opportunities pass them by. The cycle that once protected them is now limiting them. But because it's been running for so long, it feels like their personality rather than their programming. You know what's really interesting? Most people can see other people's cycles clear as day. You watch your friend date the same type of person over and over, always ending in heartbreak, and you think, why can't they see it? You watch your coworker complain about being overlooked for promotions while they show up late and do the minimum, and you think, well, of course they're not getting promoted. You watch a family member sabotage every good thing that comes their way, and you think they're their own worst enemy. But here's the hard truth. The cycles you see most clearly in others are probably running in your life too, just in different areas. The only difference is you can't see your own because you're inside them. I had to face this reality myself. I was judging people for being broke while I was barely making ends meet. I was frustrated with people who made excuses while my life was full of them. I don't have time. I don't have the money. I don't have the education. I don't have the connections. Those weren't facts. Those were my cycle talking. Those were the thoughts I repeated so often they became my reality. Here's something I want you to consider seriously. Right now, at this very moment, there's a cycle running in your life. Maybe it's multiple cycles. And they're so familiar to you that they're invisible. They feel like just the way things are. The way you start your morning. The way you handle stress. The way you spend money. The way you react when someone criticizes you. The way you put off important conversations. The way you prioritize or don't prioritize your health. The way you choose what to watch, what to read, who to spend time with. All of it. Patterns. All of it. Creating your future right now. And here's what keeps people trapped. They're waiting to feel different before they act different. They're waiting for motivation to strike, for circumstances to improve, for the right time to make a change. But that's not how breaking cycles works. The cycle is comfortable. It's familiar. Even if it's destroying you, at least you know what to expect. Change is uncomfortable. It's uncertain. So most people stay in their cycles hoping that somehow magically different results will appear. I remember talking to a man who had been in the same dead-end job for 18 years. He hated it. He complained about it constantly, but he wouldn't leave. You know what he told me? I'm just waiting for the right opportunity to come along. I said, brother, the right opportunity isn't coming to find you where you are. You have to break the cycle of settling first. You have to become the person who creates opportunities, not the person who waits for them. He didn't like hearing that. Most people don't, because it means they're responsible. It means they can't blame circumstances anymore. The question you need to ask yourself, and I mean really ask yourself honestly, is this. What cycle am I running right now that I haven't even noticed? What pattern keeps showing up in my life in different forms? Is it the cycle of starting strong and quitting when things get hard? Is it the cycle of blaming others when things go wrong? Is it the cycle of choosing comfort over growth? Is it the cycle of saying yes when you mean no? Is it the cycle of numbing yourself instead of facing your problems? Because I'm telling you right now, whatever cycle you're running, it's running your life. It's making decisions for you. It's creating your future, whether you like it or not. And the longer it runs, the harder it becomes to stop. Not impossible, mind you. Never impossible, but definitely harder. The best time to break a cycle is the moment you see it. The second best time is right now. Now let me tell you why these cycles form in the first place and why they're so hard to break. Understanding this changed everything for me, and I believe it'll change everything for you too. See, the human mind is designed to seek comfort and avoid pain. That's not a flaw. That's how we're wired. The problem is your mind can't tell the difference between healthy comfort and destructive comfort. It just knows what's familiar, and familiar always feels safer than unknown, even when familiar is slowly killing you. I learned this the hard way. When Mr. Shoaff started challenging me to change. My first reaction wasn't excitement. It was resistance. Everything in me wanted to defend my current situation. I had a whole arsenal of reasons why I couldn't change right now. The economy was tough. I didn't have the right education. I had bills to pay. I had responsibilities. And you know what? All of those things were true. But they were also excuses that kept me locked in place. My mind was protecting the cycle because the cycle was known and change was unknown. Here's something most people never consider. Your cycle has become part of your identity. You've told yourself a story about who you are, and that story includes your patterns. I'm just not a morning person. I'm not good at managing money. I come from a family that doesn't do well in business. I'm too old to change now. I'm too young to be taken seriously. These aren't observations. They're the walls of your prison. And the crazy thing is, you built them yourself, one thought at a time, one repeated behavior at a time. I want you to think about something. Where did you learn your cycle? Because nobody is born with self-destructive patterns. Babies don't come into the world knowing how to procrastinate or how to sabotage relationships or how to spend money they don't have. These are learned behaviors. So where did you learn them? For most people, the answer is simple but uncomfortable. You learned them from the people closest to you. I grew up watching my parents struggle with money, not because they were lazy or stupid, but because they had a certain philosophy about money. They believed that rich people were lucky or dishonest, that money was scarce, that you had to work yourself to death just to get by. I absorbed that philosophy like a sponge absorbs water. I didn't question it. It became my operating system. So even when I started working, even when I had opportunities, I was running their program. I was living out their beliefs about money without even realizing it. The cycle wasn't just mine. It was inherited. And here's what makes this so powerful and so dangerous. Cycles run in families for generations. You've got great-grandparents who had certain ways of dealing with conflict, certain attitudes about success, certain beliefs about what's possible. They pass those to their children, who pass them to their children, who pass them to you. And unless somebody in that chain stops and says, wait a minute, why do we do it this way? The cycle just keeps going. You've got families where divorce is the norm because nobody ever learned how to work through hard times. You've got families where financial struggle is a way of life because nobody ever questioned the belief that people like us don't get ahead. You've got families where emotional distance is standard because 3 generations ago, somebody decided that feelings were weakness. The environment you're in right now is either supporting your cycle or challenging it. Let me be blunt about this. If you hang around 5 people who are stuck in cycles of mediocrity, you're going to be the 6th. If you spend your time with people who complain, make excuses, and settle for less, those behaviors will feel normal to you. You'll adopt their philosophy without even trying. It's like living in a cold house. Eventually you get used to being cold. You stop noticing it. You might even start to believe that's just how temperature works. Somebody wants to change their life, but they keep the same associations. They want to build wealth, but they spend every evening with people who think ambition is greedy. They want to get healthy, but their social life revolves around activities that contradict health. They want to grow, but they're surrounded by voices that mock personal development. And then they wonder why change is so hard. It's hard because they're trying to swim upstream while their environment is pulling them back downstream. Your cycle feeds on your daily decisions, not the big ones, the small ones, the ones that seem insignificant in the moment, whether you hit snooze or get up, whether you read something valuable or scroll mindlessly, whether you have the difficult conversation or avoid it again, whether you invest in yourself or spend on something that doesn't matter. These tiny choices feel like they don't count. But here's the truth I learned from Mr. Everything Counts. Every single decision is either feeding your cycle or starving it. Think about the person who wants to break the cycle of poor health. They know they should exercise. They know they should eat better. But when the moment comes to choose between a workout and the couch, between a healthy meal and fast food, the cycle whispers, just this once. You're tired. You deserve a break. You'll start tomorrow. And they listen, not because they're weak, but because the cycle has been reinforced thousands of times. The neural pathway is so worn down that the default choice is automatic. They don't even feel like they're making a decision anymore. The cycle is making it for them. Or consider the person stuck in a cycle of toxic relationships. They know the red flags. They've been hurt before. They swear they won't make the same mistake again. But then they meet someone new, and the same red flags appear. And you know what happens? They ignore them. They make excuses for the behavior. They convince themselves this time is different. Why? Because their cycle is looking for what's familiar, not what's healthy. Their subconscious is more comfortable with dysfunctional love than with genuine respect, because dysfunctional is what they know. It's their normal. And changing that normal feels like betraying themselves. Here's something I wish someone had told me when I was 25. Your internal dialogue creates your external circumstances. The conversation you have with yourself all day long, that's the builder of your life. If you wake up and immediately tell yourself, I'm not a morning person, this is going to be a long day, I hate Mondays, I never have enough time, you're not just expressing feelings. You're giving instructions to your subconscious mind. You're reinforcing the cycle. You're programming yourself for exactly what you said you don't want. I started paying attention to my self-talk, and I was shocked. I was so negative, so limiting, so defeated in my own head. I was my own worst enemy. I'd stand in front of opportunity and tell myself why I wasn't qualified. I'd see successful people and tell myself they had advantages I didn't have. I'd think about goals and immediately follow them with but I'm not educated enough. But I don't have the money. But I don't know the right people. Every but was a brick in the wall of my cycle. The cycle perpetuates itself through your language. Listen to how people talk who are stuck. They use phrases like, I can't, I always, I never, that's just how I am, nobody in my family, people like me don't. These aren't casual statements. These are declarations. These are decisions. When you say, I can't, you've just closed the door. When you say, I always mess this up, you've just written the script for your next attempt. When you say, that's just how I am, you've just made your cycle permanent in your mind. But here's what's fascinating and hopeful. If you created the cycle with your thoughts and choices, you can dismantle it the same way. The cycle isn't imposed on you by fate or genetics or circumstances. You built it, which means you can unbuild it. But first, you have to see it for what it is. You have to stop defending it, stop justifying it, stop pretending it's not there. You have to get brutally honest with yourself about the pattern you're running. I remember the exact moment I stopped lying to myself. Mister, Shoaff said, Jim, you're not a victim of circumstances. You're a victim of your own poor thinking and poor judgment. That stung. I wanted to argue. I wanted to list all the reasons why my situation wasn't my fault. But deep down, I knew he was right. I knew that every day I was making choices that reinforced my broke situation. I wasn't a victim of the economy. I was a volunteer in my own struggle. The cycle wasn't happening to me. I was actively participating in it. When you really understand the anatomy of your cycle, when you see how it operates, something shifts. You realize that the cycle isn't stronger than you. It's just older than your desire to change. It has momentum, yes, but momentum can be redirected. It has power, yes, but that power comes from repetition, and repetition works both ways. If you can repeat destructive patterns, you can repeat constructive ones. If you can build a cycle that limits you, you can build one that liberates you. The question is not whether you're capable of breaking the cycle. You are. The question is whether you're willing to be uncomfortable long enough for the new pattern to become your new normal. Because I'm going to be straight with you. Breaking a cycle feels wrong at first. It feels awkward, unnatural, like you're pretending to be someone you're not. That's the old identity resisting. That's the cycle fighting for survival. And most people quit right there. They try something new for a week, it feels weird, and they go back to what's comfortable. They mistake discomfort for wrongness. when actually discomfort is evidence that you're changing. Let me tell you about the real cost of staying stuck, because most people don't do the math. They think about today, maybe tomorrow, but they don't calculate what their cycle is actually costing them over time. And when you run those numbers, when you really look at the price you're paying, it'll shake you awake. Say you're in a cycle of financial carelessness. You overspend by just $200 a month. That doesn't sound catastrophic, right? It's dinner out a few times, some impulse purchases, things you barely remember buying. But let's do the math. Over a year, that's $2,400. Over 10 years, that's $24,000 just gone. But it's actually worse than that, because if you had invested that money instead with compound interest, you'd have substantially more. Over 20 years, that small cycle of overspending could cost you $100,000 or more. One seemingly insignificant pattern running quietly in the background, and it's stolen your financial freedom. But money is just one measure. What about time? The person who wastes 2 hours a day on activities that don't enrich their life, that's 14 hours a week. That's over 700 hours a year. That's almost 30 full days. Every year, they're giving away a month of their life to meaningless activity. Over 10 years, that's 300 days, almost a full year. Think about what you could learn, what you could build, what you could become with an extra year of focused time. The cycle of poor health costs you even more. The person who neglects their body for 20 years might save some time not exercising, might enjoy some convenient food, but then they spend the last 20 years of their life paying for it with pain, limitations, medical bills, and lost experiences. They trade short-term comfort for long-term suffering. I've watched people do this, and it breaks my heart. They wake up at 65 and realize they can't do the things they dreamed of doing in retirement because their body won't let them. The cycle robbed them of their future. What about relationships? The person who runs a cycle of emotional unavailability or poor communication might protect themselves from vulnerability in the moment, but over the years they wake up alone. They've pushed away everyone who tried to love them. They've missed the depth of connection that makes life meaningful. You can't put a price tag on that kind of loss. You can't calculate the value of the relationships you never built, the love you never received, the moments you never shared, because your cycle kept everyone at arm's length. Here's what really gets me. The cycle doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone around you. Your children are watching. They're learning from your patterns. If you're stuck in a cycle of making excuses, they're learning to make excuses. If you're trapped in a cycle of settling for less, they're learning. That's what people do. If your cycle is anger or avoidance or dishonesty, that's the inheritance you're leaving them. You're not just losing your own potential, you're limiting theirs. The cycle echoes into the next generation. I want you to think about where you'll be in 5 years if nothing changes. Not where you hope to be, not where you wish you could be, but where you'll actually be if you keep running the same program. That's not pessimism, that's reality. Your future is being created by your present patterns. If your present pattern is procrastination, your future is regret. If your present pattern is overspending, your future is financial stress. If your present pattern is neglecting important relationships, your future is loneliness. The truth nobody wants to hear is this: every day you stay in the cycle, it gets harder to break. Not impossible, never impossible, but harder. The pattern becomes more ingrained. The identity becomes more fixed. The excuses become more convincing. The cycle builds its own defense system. It'll tell you that you're too old to change now, too invested in your current path, too far behind to catch up. Those are lies designed to keep you trapped. I've seen people waste entire decades waiting for the perfect moment to break their cycle. They're going to change when the kids are grown, when they have more money, when work slows down, when they feel ready. But that moment never comes because the cycle doesn't want you to change. The cycle's job is to perpetuate itself. And the longer you wait, the more of your life it consumes. So now comes the part you've been waiting for. How do you actually break the cycle? And I'm going to give you the truth. not some fairy tale about how easy it is. Breaking a cycle is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it's also one of the most important. And here's what I've learned after helping thousands of people transform their lives. It all starts with changing your philosophy. Your philosophy is the set of ideas and beliefs you hold about how life works. It's your operating system. And if your philosophy is faulty, everything built on top of it will be faulty too. You can try to change your actions, but if your philosophy stays the same, you'll just drift back to your old patterns. I had to change my philosophy about money before I could change my bank account. I had to change my philosophy about personal responsibility before I could change my circumstances. I had to change my philosophy about what was possible before I could achieve anything beyond what I'd already done. So ask yourself, what do I believe about this area of my life where I'm stuck? If you're stuck financially, what do you really believe about money? If you're stuck in relationships, what do you really believe about love and connection? If you're stuck in your career, what do you really believe about your own capabilities? Your beliefs are running the show. Change the beliefs, and you change everything. Once your philosophy shifts, you need new information to feed your mind. This is where most people fail. They want different results, but they keep consuming the same information. They watch the same shows, read the same things, listen to the same voices. You cannot have a new life with old information. It's impossible. When Mr. Schoaf told me to start reading, I resisted. I said I didn't have time. He said, Jim, you have time for television. You have time for complaining. You have time for activities that don't serve you. You don't have a time problem. You have a priority problem. That hit me hard because it was true. I started reading 30 minutes a day, just 30 minutes. And over time, that habit changed everything because it changed how I thought. New books gave me new ideas. New ideas challenged my old philosophy. And a new philosophy gave me new results. If you want to break your cycle, you need to declare war on ignorance. You need to become a student again. You need to find people who've broken the cycle you're stuck in and learn from them. And that brings me to associations. You need new people in your life. I know that sounds harsh, but it's necessary. If everyone around you is comfortable with mediocrity, you'll be comfortable with it too. If everyone around you makes excuses, you'll find yourself making excuses. You need to find at least one person who's living at a level above where you are. Someone who challenges you, who doesn't let you get away with your usual patterns, who holds you accountable. Mr. Schoaf was that person for me. He didn't accept my excuses. He didn't feel sorry for me. He showed me what was possible and then demanded I rise to meet it. Now here's the part nobody talks about. When you start changing, your cycle will fight back hard. It'll feel like everything is conspiring against you. Old temptations will show up. People will question what you're doing. You'll have moments where you want to quit. This is normal. This is the cycle's last defense. It's been running your life for years, maybe decades. It's not going to surrender easily. You have to be ready for this resistance and push through anyway. Breaking a cycle requires you to become a different person. Not just do different things, but actually become someone new. The person you are right now created the cycle you're in. So you can't break the cycle by being the same person making different choices. You have to evolve. You have to develop new disciplines, new standards, new expectations of yourself. When I started my transformation, I had to become someone who kept promises to himself. I had to become someone who did hard things even when he didn't feel like it. I had to become someone who valued long-term results over short-term comfort. Start small, but start today. Don't try to change everything at once. That's overwhelming. And when you get overwhelmed, you quit. Pick one area where your cycle is most damaging and focus there. Maybe it's your morning routine. Maybe it's how you spend money. Maybe it's how you respond to conflict. Choose one pattern and create a new response. Do it consistently, even when it feels awkward, even when the old way is screaming for you to come back. The power is in the small, consistent actions that contradict your old pattern. If your cycle is procrastination, do one important thing first every single morning before you do anything else. If your cycle is overspending, create a 24-hour rule before any non-essential purchase. If your cycle is avoiding difficult conversations, commit to addressing one small issue every week instead of letting things build up. These aren't dramatic changes, but they're disruptions to the pattern. And disruptions repeated over time break the cycle. You also need to change your environment, make the old cycle harder to maintain and the new pattern easier to follow. If you're trying to break a cycle of poor health, remove junk food from your house. If you're trying to break a cycle of wasting time, delete the apps that consume your attention. If you're trying to break a cycle of toxic relationships, create physical and emotional distance from people who pull you backward. Your environment is stronger than your willpower, so design an environment that supports who you're becoming, not who you've been. Here's what I want you to understand. On the other side of your cycle is the life you've been dreaming about. The person you could become, the impact you could make, the legacy you could leave. All of it is waiting for you. But it requires you to step into the unknown, to endure the discomfort of change, to become someone new. The question isn't whether you can do it. You can. The question is whether you will. Will you break the cycle before it breaks you? The choice, my friend, is yours. And the time to choose is now.